There we are. Welcome in. It's PHNX Cardinals here on a football Friday. I'm Johnny Venerable. He is Bo Brack. This episode is presented by our friends at OG's Flavoring Fridays. Check them out, ogbrands.com. They have a phenomenal selection, a slam dunk, if you will. It's also a slam dunk to become a PHNX diehard at gophnx.com. Bo Brack, Johnny in the house, like this video. Welcome in, putting a bow with Bo on a football Friday.
It's an exciting day. It's a monumentous day here. Of course, Flavoring Fridays, Johnny. Everybody that we know, we love, they're in the chat. What's up, Ben? What's up, Joel? What's up, Fishbowl Flash? Hans shot first. Jack, Drew. This is why it's a monumentous day. It's time to raise the banner, my friends, to the Arizona Cardinals, a well-deserved best four-win team in a long time. Are you ready for it to hang up in State Farm Stadium right there with the names of the legends of Arizona Cardinals history, the Larry Fitzgeralds, the Larry Wilsons, the Adrian Wilsons, the Carson Palmers, Kurt Warner. Now it's right there when you are taking in a Cardinals game, the best four-win team in a long time. Oh, man, it feels good. It feels good.
We are very blessed. And again, this franchise, not a lot to celebrate, but let's celebrate a snippet from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler coming out and saying that they have heard that this is the most competitive, well-rounded four-win team in some time. We're going to get to that in a second. I do want to address this super chat because I talked to Bo off air about it. Merv, our guy, busted a move $4.99. The Cardinals on Twitter might have just quietly announced Trey McBride starting as a Pro Bowl alternate next week while Kittle and Sam Laporta sit out. So that is not official yet. I worked the phones for a hot minute, and literally like a minute because I just saw this. I couldn't find anything. I haven't heard anything. That would not surprise me. Now, Bo, you get direct press releases from the team, and they have not announced anything yet. Is that correct?
That's correct. No official word as of yet. If Trey McBride is going to play in that flag football game that I believe is in Orlando. But look, it would be an honor just to have a member of the team outside of Budda Baker and somebody that statistically certainly earned his right to play in the NFL's All-Star game.
I wonder if they're just waiting until we get confirmation which tight end is not going to be participating before they come out and say Trey McBride is replacing X player. But it does feel like Trey was high in the fan voting already, and obviously his statistics back it up, especially on a Cardinal team that struggled, hence maybe better than the 4 wins that they had earned this year. But I mean, you think about if Trey McBride gets a Pro Bowl berth as a tight end, that is monumental based on the fact that this franchise hasn't even gotten like average tight end play. And then 2 years into his career, albeit as an alternate, to enter the Pro Bowl equation. That's awesome because what it does also too, Bo, is it rips the Band-Aid off for future Pro Bowl bursts. And it shouldn't be a popularity vote, but the more the casual fan, the fantasy football enthusiast, if you will, gets to know Trey McBride and that he is a star beyond the greater Phoenix area, beyond the Valley itself, that's going to help him. Like, you start stacking a la Budda Baker Pro Bowl bursts, whether alternate or otherwise, you're more likely to go back.
Right. And you hope that this is more than less short-lived than David Johnson, right? Because David Johnson had that big 2016 season, 20 total touchdowns, fantasy darling, won a lot of people leagues. And then the next year he's out week 1. And then the next thing you know, I mean, he's basically an afterthought as far as the NFL goes. You hope this is the beginning of something special. But of course, this game, especially the tight end position, is so brutal and it's so stacked in the NFC. So to earn that honor and to be included, not only statistically, but also honored as far as Pro Bowl berth, or, you know, if you're making all the postseason teams, that's something to be proud of at this position. As you mentioned, like the Kittles, Laporta, who just was new to the scene as a second-round pick to the Lions, and other players in the NFC. TJ Hawkinson, with his injury, was having his best year of his career and the best season for a tight end in the NFC. So Trey McBride to be well entrenched into that position in a part of that tier is fantastic. I mean, it's not Tyler Huntley last year getting a Pro Bowl nod just over like Shane Falco and some other, fictional quarterback that said
Yes.
the game, right? This is a real thing. And he was, next on in the pecking order, and it's fantastic for the Cardinals, and it's even more fantastic for Trey.
Yeah, again, you have to check out the Cardinals Twitter, but they basically put out a GIF of Trey McBride waving, and it just said "See you next weekend" with a waving emoji. I don't know why they would put that out there. I mean, given the fact that Trey is next in line to make the Pro Bowl, but if you just start connecting the dots, it seems likely he's headed there. Maybe we'll get breaking news while we're on the show, but I think he's headed to the Pro Bowl, and we'll let you know when we have that confirmed. We do have a confirmed report from Jeremy Fowler that the Cardinals may, in fact, be ahead of schedule. We teased at the top of the show. Let's jump into it. Jeremy Fowler, this is via ESPN, and this story's picked up some traction. I'll let Bo kind of dissect if this is tongue-in-cheek or not. Arizona is trending up despite its 4-3 clip in 2023, says Fowler, as one NFL offensive coach said. That's the best 4-win team I've seen in a while. They make you earn everything. Monti Ossenfort has 6 picks in the first 3 rounds of the draft to improve the roster. This is via a source. Gannon seems legit, and they can kill it in the draft. And AFC Scouts said if they add some vet pieces in free agency, which is what we've hammered home on this show, they can surprise some people. Kyler Murray will be better with a full year coming off an ACL tear. So looking at that quote, Bo Brack, like, I know a lot of people scoff at the notion that a team, are they really better than 4 wins? Like, I think, yes, they are, because they didn't have their franchise quarterback for most of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's not a backhanded compliment in any way. I think that this is what they're really trying to do is build up an Arizona Cardinals team that I don't think anybody has a reason to do so outside of what they witnessed. And I think that was early on. That I think that narrative that is now making its way around the Cardinals and Jonathan Gannon and Monti Ossenfort now was something that happened very early on, to where teams were put on notice that from Washington week 1 to New York that had the rally back in week 2 to beating the Cowboys in week 3 and then hanging around, Cincinnati and Baltimore. Like, this was not going to be a team that you were just going to stroll into State Farm Stadium or, have them visit you at your home stadium and that you were just going to get a Sharpie and be able to put a W next to the win column. I mean, it just that they did that very early on, and it's a true testament to it. And I love to see that they're getting that, because very rarely, like, do you look after the regular season at the standings and look at those teams that have 3 and 4 wins and have something, positive said about them. Because usually there's a coaching change and there's, massive changes coming down the pike for that team, where I think, the changes for the Arizona Cardinals, I think, like, this, Johnny, is the Arizona Cardinals. They have a great personality right now. And now they're going to work on their exterior, and they're going to look a lot sexier, and they're going to be able to couple their great personality with great looks here with some great talent on this roster. So they're going to be more than just a great personality.
Yeah, bust out the credit card and go to the luxury department store and start spending some money in the form of NFL free agency, while also, taking care of your 401k in the NFL draft. Like, I love that comment from an anonymous scout because they need to spend money in free agency. Like, you and I both know that. The chat, everybody in the chat, by the way, like this video, knows that. Like, this team is building for the long term, but they also have a chance in the short term to compete and be competitive in 2024 in an NFC conference that saw Tampa Bay make the playoffs, that had multiple fraudulent teams there at the end. The Packers at 9-8 sneaking in and damn near almost making the conference championship game. When you have a quarterback, the talent of Kyler Murray, and he looks the way he does at the end of the year, nobody wanted to play the Cardinals. And people may scoff at that. Like, no. They beat multiple playoff teams down the stretch, and they should have beaten Seattle in the finale, and they would have been 4-4 with K1. So if you're doing that math equation equates to 8-9 or 9-8 with Kyler Murray. That's what it comes down to with a rebuilding roster. That's basically what the Packers were this year, except for Kyler Murray had to rehab from a torn ACL. He's back now by all accounts, and this team is going to double and triple down on what works. And what worked in 2023 was a stout run game, finally a plus quarterback in the tail end of the season, and a defense that was really molding young players. And now they're going to supplement. So I saw that, and I'm like, I think people will scoff at that. there's 100% sincerity to that. Like this feels very much like, and it's different because they had immediate success in the form of a 10-win season. The first year Bruce Arians was here in 2013, they got third place in the division in the NFC West, which had two teams represented in the NFC Championship game. But they were a damn good team, and they played really well down the stretch. They started 1-2, and then they finished they were 10-6 on the year, so they must have finished like 9-4, and then they made the postseason the next year, and then they won the division after that. This feels like the same momentum, and your record be damned. Like that team had a lot to figure out. Carson Palmer had to get comfortable with the offense, a la Kyler Murray getting comfortable with the offense, and then you've got veterans and young players alike that have elevated you. So I think it's the same thing. That group had Tyrann Mathieu. They added some key players in David Johnson and John Brown in the coming years. So I think the Cardinals are on the same kind of trajectory. I think in the perfect world, you're competing for a postseason spot next year. You make the playoffs as a wild card team, and we'll see what happens with San Francisco. And then the culmination of this rebuild in 2025 is we're competing for the NFC West.
Absolutely. And I think what that team did well, even before, Keim took over and obviously worked in concert with Bruce Arians as far as being the architects of that team, is, they had Fitz at that time who at that made a position change and had a career resurgence. And you had Patrick Peterson, who was a stud, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. And as you mentioned, the draft class was essential to that, them taking off in the first year in 2013, and then building on top of that was they had established foundational pieces, right? Where I think that this team was a little bit further behind, but I see it like the trajectory is the same, right? And the Arizona Cardinals of now are probably, they were a step behind that, but the momentum is real, and you can see the direction of both the organizations at different times in their franchise. And I think that's got to be exciting. And that's why we were excited when we saw Jonathan Gannon and Monti Ossenfort, and we were listening to what they were saying, and that their actions were proving to follow in lockstep with their words, and that the direction of the organization was finally going to trend the right way. Where before it was just like, we're never rebuilding and this and that. And, they're going to throw money at this roster spot, and who knows, they're a wild card in the draft, where what they're going to do in free agency. They're going to try to find guys to help get this roster up to snuff towards competitive, where it wasn't competitive this past season, and then continue its path of drafting and developing, which is going to set up, the path of success that's consistent, that hasn't been there in so long.
Absolutely. Like it's all about projections and putting the pieces together, and can you make sense of it? To your point, Bo, like we just talked about it yesterday, the Chargers are picking 5th overall. Is anybody going to be surprised if the Chargers make the playoffs next year? No, because they made a huge upgrade at head coach, and they had Justin Herbert in-house. If this is your stereotypical team picking 3rd, 4th, 5th, that's a long way to go. Like typically you do not have a franchise quarterback in-house, somebody that's made the playoffs before, a la Kyler Murray and Justin Herbert, that you can say goes apart with your rebuild. But you're just, with some of these franchises, it's just a little tinkering. Like I remember the New Orleans Saints, when they got Drew Brees and Sean Payton, it was one of the worst teams in the NFL to immediate Super Bowl contender. Like it can happen overnight. And that's the beauty of the NFL. There are teams every year, worst to first, right? And then first to worst. What makes it harder to project, not in the NFC, but the NFC West has been such a gauntlet. I'm going to bring this up every time we talk about this. Pete Carroll leaving the NFC West opens the door for Jonathan Gannon. It just absolutely does. And when you see that point in the article that Jonathan Gannon is legit, and he is legit, we watched it for 17 weeks this season, ups and downs, but he had the morale of this team at an all-time high. That's a door open, because we have seen Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, they can have off years. Their teams can go 8-9. Their teams can go 7-10. Can Jonathan Gannon make a move and somehow go 500 in the NFC West? Because I'm going to tell you right now, outside of the NFC West, which they did go 0-6, like I'm not underplaying that. Jonathan Gannon, very competitive against the AFC North, very competitive against the NFC South. So I am optimistic that Gannon himself is also going to take it to the next level. And I think the best is yet to come, because we have not had the infrastructure of a fully rebuilt roster, Kyler Murray and Jonathan Gannon in cohesiveness on an NFL Sunday. It felt very much like they were compromised every weekend, and that's what made their competitiveness and their effort all the more encouraging, because no point when we were watching this team on Sunday would we ever say they have better players than the opponent. It just didn't happen.
Right. You see that, you see the talent disparity, and then you see the team competing, scratching and clawing to stay in each and every game. And their coaching staff put them schematically in a position to do so. And then when you get, good coaching coupled with players that match the scheme, coupled with consistent quarterback play, and as you mentioned before, when you pointed out, Green Bay and you'll throw the Bucks in there too. It was another team that was just a game over 500. That when Jordan Love and Baker Mayfield took care of the football and their play became more consistent and it matched the run games and the defensive efforts that they had and the coaching efforts, that's when they started to win football games, and that's when they became dangerous in the postseason and made their way to the divisional round. And if Jonathan Gannon, if the way that his team played was a testament to how competitive he can get his guys to play at, also you can look at the team that he left and how they did not compete throughout the entire season. That down the stretch, Philadelphia, all the flaws that they had and the lack of coaching and the lack of position that their coaches put them in, just it got worse and worse and worse. And that's a true testament to Jonathan Gannon and an indictment on those coaches who took over for him in Philadelphia.
Absolutely. AZ Fan 1998, thank you so much. $2 super chat. Our Cardinals will be stacked next year. MHJ, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. I agree. They got a lot of work to do. And again, this podcast will be objective. We are objective. Every single day we turn on these microphones, but they got to spend money in March. Nobody's going to be happy if we're sitting here, and I don't think this is going to happen. And they're slow playing free agency again. You got to be aggressive if you're Monti Ossenfort. You have created now a reputation through your effort that people think you overachieved this year. So now don't make the mistake of underachieving next year, given the expectations. Don't become the Chicago Bears, where you're doubling down on what works and not pivoting to what does work. We know the Cardinals defensive line is not good enough. We know they need multiple veteran cornerbacks and a new right tackle and a new left guard. I'm not saying fix everything overnight, but be proactive. Put a list together, and they have done this, and they have put together, and they are finalizing, I'm told, their top, free agency big board. I don't know how many names on it specifically there are, but they are poised to have their free agency big board done by February 1st. So if that's the case, you need to prioritize by position: defensive tackle, defensive end, cornerback, because if you do, you set yourself up for a monster year. Expectations be damned. Go out and sign a Brian Burns or a Daniil Hunter or Christian Wilkins, and suddenly everybody perks up in the valley and beyond. The Cardinals, not only do they have Kyler Murray and Budda Baker and maybe MHJ, but hey, they got some dogs on defense all of a sudden. They're feisty and competitive and poised to make some noise in the NFC. We do not want the narrative to be Kyler Murray in the offense has to carry this defense yet again. And so they know that. They're equipped to handle it, but we got to see it in action, Bo.
Yeah, Drew makes a good point. Chicago didn't underachieve. The late, great Denny Green said, the Bears are who we thought they were.
That's well said.
And we let them get away with it. We did.
Yeah.
Damn it. No, I mean, completely agree. And then you have along with the Chicago Bears, how about the Denver Broncos? Back-to-back off seasons where you see it's hey, they won the off season. They got their quarterback. Oh, yeah, off-season champs. And that's meaningless. That's meaningless. Don't make the best 4-win team in a long time meaningless. Become dangerous. Continue to become dangerous, because there is going to be, is applauded as Monti Ossenfort is for cleaning up this mess in hitting in the draft and accumulating draft assets for this offseason in salary cap space, and Jonathan Gannon getting these players who were not NFL caliber players to compete and be competitive throughout a 17-game haul of the NFL season. Now you got to prove with that, can you turn that into talented players, and can his message, can it resonate with those players too? Can they buy in as much as the guys that are fighting to just stay in the league? And that's going to be the next step of this.
Well, it's interesting, the next step with this team, we talked about it before. What do you think the over-under for wins is going to be when it's all said and done? We fast forward to May, June. I have a number in mind. probably is a little too high at this point. What do you think the number is going to be with our friends at like DraftKings over under for total wins in 2024?
I think I'm just adding one player that I feel like in Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, what he does to that on offense and what we've already seen from Kyler Murray, that you're going to be with him healthy, which is a big if as well, but Vegas can only kind of forecast, what they know. I would say 7.5.
Yeah. I would be shocked if it's not 7.5. That feels right. 8.5, which is what the Chicago Bears over under was this year. Good hell. 7.5 feels like the sweet spot for this team, because I feel like if they hit the over on 7.5, they really hit the over. And if they hit the under, like things have gone terribly wrong. Like if you tell me they win over 7 games next year, I think they win 9 or 10 games. I think that, first of all, their schedule is much more manageable. It's a true fourth place schedule, right? The out of conference, out of division games are much easier. I mean, I know they play the AFC East, but I like their chances probably against the Jets right now. I like their chances, better quarterback than New England. Like you can split with that division. Buffalo.
What about the Chargers? They got to play the Chargers. That's a tougher game, right?
That is a tougher game. Merv saying 8.5. I think general consensus with the fans is going to be somewhere between 7 or 8 in terms of the over under. And again, it comes down to, if Kyler Murray looks good early in the season, all bets are off. And there's no reason to think he won't look good. I mean, he looked great with a watered down skilled group coming off an ACL with the hardest strength of schedule in the NFL. That's got to get you fired up. I'm going to tell you what else gets me fired up is our friends at DraftKings, our DraftKings pick of the week. I'm going to change it up this week, Bo. I'm going to go parlay 3-leg action. And I really like these picks. I don't like the outcome of these picks necessarily, 2 in particular, but I feel good about this hitting. So parlay of the week, Baltimore -4. Joe Thuney was just declared out. Big piece of KC's offensive line. So I like Baltimore -4. I think they're going to win pretty comfortably. I like the 49er money line. I would love to be wrong. I just don't see it happening. I also like Brock Purdy, Fraud Purdy, to go over 2.5 passing touchdowns. I think they're going to make it a point, throw on Detroit's susceptible secondary. He's going to play better than he did last week. That's Johnny's parlay DraftKings pick of the week. And you got to use it with our friends at DraftKings. Right now, bonus code PHNX is going to hook you up. New customers bet just $5 on any game. Get $200 in instant bonus bets. Again, $5 going to get you $200 instantly in bonus bets with our friends at DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. It's a call to action, folks. New customers right now, 5 is going to get you that sweet, sweet $200 instantly. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.HopeNY in New York. Text HopeNY 467-369 1-800. In Connecticut, help is available for problems gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Again, please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino Resort in Kansas. 21 plus. Age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets, they do expire, friends, 168 hours after they issue. See DraftKings.com/football for eligibility, deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources.
Conference championships are here, as Johnny outlined. A little Brock, yacht Brock, as they're calling them, right? Yacht Brock, like Yacht Rock for Brock Purdy. You got the 49ers, Lions, and then, of course, the AFC championship. You got the Baltimore Ravens. Can they get the job done? Or, we hope that Lamar can maybe punch the ticket to the Super Bowl. You can do it watching it live at Four Peaks. Great place to catch a game. 8th Street in Tempe. They've got all their delicious beers brewed on location. Unbelievable menu from appetizers to entrees to desserts. You can pair and couple with all of their delicious beers, whether you're an IPA guy or gal, or you like yourself the Wow Wheat, #1 wheat beer in Arizona. You got to stop by Four Peaks. Maybe even couple it with one of their barrel-aged beers, which is always so smooth. Check it out. The barrel-aged Raj is fantastic. Check out their event calendar as well. Don't want to miss out on any of the great events going on at your hometown brewery, Four Peaks. Check them out, fourpeaks.com. Follow them on your socials as well, at Four Peaks Brew and at Four Peaks Pub.
Loving the chat today. Hit that like button. Richard saying Mike Florio says 2 wins. Yeah, Mike Florio also said winless this year. Kyler wouldn't play and Gannon would be one and done. So
how is Ben Johnson going to be prepared for this game as he's been having all these interviews? You can't possibly do 2 things at once.
yeah, turns out these guys pretty good at what they do. They can handle that. Merv, Johnny owes me some Burrows if Purdy chokes this Sunday. I'll happily pay that, Merv. I would love it's emotional hedging. Like I did last weekend. I took San Francisco live when I got like minus 125 when they were trailing the Packers. I was watching the game with my son, and I'm like, I've seen this before. I would love Detroit to make the Super Bowl. I think everybody would. Anybody outside of Santa Clara, if you're not rooting for the Detroit Lions, what are you doing? The Landers saying Lions are going to win. Let's get into it. Let's get into some NFC AFC Championship Sunday predictions. Let's start in the NFC. Is there any reason to believe the San Francisco 49ers won't make the Super Bowl, Bo?
Yeah, they'd have to come out really. They would have to have a bad Brock game, as you mentioned. Like he would have to be below average, turn the ball over like he did. What was that against the Minnesota Vikings in prime time earlier this year? Like we'd have to see bad Brock this week. And I mean, not to completely count out the Detroit Lions. They've had a fantastic season. I think they've got the talent on both sides of the football. But no, I mean it's on the road there in the Bay Area for the Lions, and it just feels like the Niners are just well oiled, and they'll probably be at full strength or close to it. I mean they are the favorite; they're overwhelming favorite. So I believe that. I mean I'd love to see the underdogs win in the Lions, but if you're pressing me, I'm thinking it's a Niners game.
I mean, like, is the line borderline disrespectful? It's 7.5 favoring San Francisco. That seems really high. And I like how high it is because I think that it plays to the motivation that Campbell and his team are going to have. For them to win this game, they almost have to score, in my opinion, on damn near every possession. And we saw what Green Bay didn't do last week. They couldn't cash in for 7 early, settled for field goals. But I so badly want San Francisco to lose because I do think like, and I'm putting Purdy aside because certainly there are limitations there, but this San Francisco team, like, how quickly will this window shut if they lose this game? And how quickly does it reemerge for other teams, a la the Cardinals in the NFC West? Like Trent Williams is basically year to year. They've already made that clear, like 1 year away, 2 years away from retirement. His body breaks down. Nick Bosa has been good this year, and he had an extension, but he's a very injury-prone player. Debo's going to play this weekend, but Debo's got 1,000-yard receiving season in his career. Like he's very much a dicey proposition. They haven't paid Brandon Ayuk yet. McCaffrey, what he did this year was sensational. Can he duplicate that? Probably not. Like, to me, it's like they have to win the Super Bowl this year. Like, I genuinely believe that. I know they're a hell of a team when it comes to drafting and developing, but mega superstar players, Hall of Fame level players, are, in my opinion, are going to be on their way out. Like Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey, you remove them from the equation, Brock Purdy turns into Mac Jones. He turns into the worst aspects of Kirk Cousins. Like, that's why I don't buy into this notion that, well, they've got Brock Purdy on a rookie deal, they're going to be set. Like, no, rookie deals only matter when the QB can elevate everybody else. When that generational talent is gone, then you're asking somebody that's not capable of carrying you to do so. So I would love to see them go down. I don't think it's going to happen until potentially the Super Bowl, but Detroit, physical. We know that you can run on them. The Cardinals ran against San Francisco, I think, for over 200 yards in Kyler Murray's game against them. So, I mean, can Jahmyr Gibbs have a takeover game? I think it's possible.
Yeah, and like, look, Jared Goff hasn't given you any reason this postseason to doubt him. Like, he's playing high-level football. And when you saw, Baker Mayfield nearly, get his team back in the game against the Lions, and you saw Jordan Love and the Packers hang around against the 49ers, I think that, that they fully have the ability to stay in this game and keep it a one-score game. Like, is it disrespectful? Probably. But man, is it like with all the talent and having becomes the crown, even if you don't win a Super Bowl for the San Francisco 49ers, like we saw throughout this regular season, they were a team that was deemed the most talented roster in the league. And people are going to want their players, and it's going to drive the price up for them to either A, keep them or they're going to have to let him walk. So, they're already paying guys in Bosa, and obviously had to throw a bunch of money at Hargrave in the middle of that defense. And they've got McCaffrey on the books. And at some point, Brock Purdy's in his second season. He's got 2 more years under contract as the, 7th round pick. But, Brandon Ayuk's going to come up. They're paying Debo, George Kittle, like Trent Williams is, as you said, season to season, but making a ton of money at the left tackle position. Like this is a roster, as you said, like sure, it's got some youth on it. It's got some up and comers, but at the same time is where they stand contractually. Like this window is not wide open. It's cracked open for the 49ers, and they better capitalize.
What about in the AFC? Baltimore's favored. They're favored by 4 points. I do think this is when the other shoe falls for Kansas City. I think whereas Buffalo was a little bit finesse, I think Baltimore very much is going to be able to do what they want on either side of the ball. Do you think Baltimore makes the Super Bowl?
It's tough to count out. Patrick Mahomes, but what isn't it the stat out there that whoever beats Josh Allen loses to the next round? It's right up there with death and taxes as far as certainties. I wouldn't count out Mahomes in there. I think they're playing better, at least offensively, and their defense is always all right. And in Baltimore, like you're waiting for them to have one of those performances. Like, does one game fix all their issues that we knew about Baltimore a long time ago about Lamar Jackson in Baltimore this time of year? So, we know about Patrick Mahomes and that he can come up in the clutch. And now it's time for Lamar Jackson to show that he belongs with the big boys.
It's the biggest game of Lamar Jackson's career. And Mahomes has played in a bunch of these, but I think, they have the infrastructure. They have the receivers and the backs and the special teams and certainly the defense. I think Kansas City, the limitations this week are finally going to show offensively. Like I don't know what Sean McDermott was doing, especially in that third quarter last week. That was embarrassing. Yeah. But you should not get beat by this Kansas City receiving core, as skilled as Mahomes is. And you've got one guy you got to worry about at the tight end position if you're Buffalo, and they couldn't stop Travis Kelce, who basically is like game to game, he might retire. So John Harbaugh's big time head coach. I don't think very highly of Sean McDermott. So to me, I think Baltimore, if we're hoping San Francisco loses at some point, it's going to be the Ravens. I think San Francisco's better than Kansas City, even with Mahomes. So I'm hopeful. I think Baltimore would be favored over Kansas or over San Francisco after what we saw them do in Santa Clara like a month and a half ago around.
Right. Wasn't it Christmas? They beat the hell out of them.
Was it Christmas? Okay.
Yeah, Christmas night. They went in there and just destroyed them. That was the game I was thinking about. It was Brock Purdy threw for 4 picks in that game. They pulled him for Sam Darnold. They said, stop the fight. He's on the turf. He's on the mat. But I see these the Ravens 4.5, and I see Eris in the chat saying it's Baltimore. They're going to win by 10, maybe by 6. I just we saw this a couple years ago where you feel like the Chiefs should roll over the Bengals, and the Bengals end up punching their ticket. Like at this stage of the season, you can't just completely count out these teams that have fought and clawed their way. Yeah. These are all 4 talented teams, and I'm not prepared to just say I'm gonna just overlook what Kansas City has done and what they haven't done, and the same goes for Detroit. But I get it. You look at the conspiracy theory about the Super Bowl logo, and it is red and it is purple. So maybe it's a foregone conclusion that it is a Ravens-Niners Super Bowl already.
You guys are crushing it. Leave a like on this video. Comment with a free agent you want to see the Cardinals sign down below. A lot of love to Baltimore in the chat. Lander saying, I think Lamar fumbles the game-winning drive. Our guy Aris saying, nope, Baltimore will make the Super Bowl. We got another one here. Chiefs, Lions, Mahomes repeat. I'd love to see that. Any situation where the 49ers aren't in the big dance, that's good for the Cardinals. What's going to be good for you? Joining the Circle K Inner Circle. Perfect time to load up on snacks ahead of Championship Sunday and maybe fill up in the meantime. The Inner Circle right now is here to save you money at America's Thirst Stop with their free new membership program. Save 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. Save 3 cents per gallon every single day. Plus, Every sixth free selection on the following Circle K products: pizza, coffee, ice cold fountain drinks, and more. Join it today. Put the app on your phone, your mobile device, whatever you use. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading that sweet, sweet Circle K app. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com, Bo, for more details.
I believe we've got a promotion going on with our friends over at Game Time app where you can use the promo code Vegas100. That's going to save you $100 off tickets to the big game as we talk about, after the conference championship games. And you can't go wrong using Game Time. Johnny and I have utilized the Game Time app for over a year now. It's been unreal. Haven't had a bad experience from getting tickets to see our favorite comedians, to concerts. You went and saw, who was it? Lizzo? Yeah, you saw Lizzo downtown Phoenix.
Before she was canceled. It's almost like, and I got cheap tickets. It's almost like it was, it was an event and then she got canceled, but that's neither here nor there.
Didn't even know that Lizzo was canceled. I didn't know. Rest in peace, Lizzo, and her career.
She had some issues with her backup dancers, let's just say.
Man.
Shaming her backup dancers.
You can't do that. But Game Time, it's never going to shame you, and it's never going to dip too far into your wallet looking for those expensive fees and stuff like that. And you can save even more money by using the promo code PHNX. When you download the Game Time app today, you sign up, use the promo code PHNX. You can get $20 off your first purchase right now. Use it on concert tickets to the next Suns game, parking passes as well. You can get them all cheap on the Game Time app and get them last minute, last second. Game Time, download it today. Last minute tickets, lowest priced, guaranteed.
You guys are crushing it in the chat. You also can crush it becoming a diehard at GoPHNX.com. Big thanks to everybody that tapped in for the PHNX Cardinals Open Q&A yesterday. We're going to be doing it post-Thursday show. If you want to join in on the chat and get the exclusive membership benefits, become a diehard at GoPHNX.com. Pick up a free hat and or shirt every single year. You are a diehard. I'm rocking this lid, the Bird Gang t-shirt. Check out the inner workings of our friends like Craig Morgan, Jesse Friedman, Gerald Bourguet, and more. The exclusive all-access content that you crave as an Arizona sports fan, you can find at GoPHNX.com. And again, these chats we're having post-show, they're about to get even spicier, dishing out these tasty nuggets ahead of free agency that you can't get anywhere else. Become a diehard. I encourage you. You will love it. It'll be worth your sweet, sweet dollar bills. GoPHNX.com, the merchandise locker. Check it out. I put out a little video today, Johnny on the Spot, that was edited by our award-winning producer, Damon Dog. And I want to get the conversation started. I love a good pro comp as much as the next person. And while I didn't do apples and oranges, I made a reference to, while I believe, and please go check out the piece if you could, Marvin Harrison Jr. can be the heir apparent to Larry Fitzgerald. And while I think there are comparables to them on the field, certainly the physicality, high point in the football, I don't know if Marvin projects to be Larry, the football player on the field. I'm just talking about the impact he can have on this football franchise, I think can be Fitzgerald-esque. I feel comfortable and confident in saying that. With that being said, I thought it would be a fun exercise, Bo, to go through the many circles of online publications, scouts, anonymous insiders talking about what they believed is the true pro comp for Marvin Harrison Jr. But before we get to the results, I want to ask you, I'm putting you on the spot. It's Bo Brack on the spot. Marvin Harrison Jr., who does he project to be at the next level? The closest comparison for his game?
Man, that's a great question. I would say probably with his size, decent speed. I think he can be Mike Evans. And that's people will scoff at that, but Mike Evans has had 9 seasons in a row at 1,000 yards receiving.
Is he going to the Hall? Is Mike Evans going to the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I think at this point, yes.
Yeah. So you're comparing him to a Hall of Fame player. I don't think that's disrespectful.
Right.
And if I pull up, so Mike Evans was drafted, when was he drafted? 2013th
or 14th, right?
Yeah. So, and he was drafted in the same class, 2014.
He might have been top 10, actually.
He was he was the 7th overall pick in 2014. And of that draft, there was another receiver that was drafted ahead of him in Sammy Watkins. And I bring up Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins was like the last top 10 bust of a wide receiver that I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mike Evans was kind of an afterthought. He played with Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M. Would you sign up for Mike Evans' career if you're drafting Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Yes.
If somebody said you can have Randy Moss potentially, or it's like you can have this big wad of money, or you can have the surprise bag, the secret bag, where the surprise, you don't know what's coming. What would you pick? The safe route or the surprise bag?
I'd take the safe route.
Okay. I like your
safe route. The safe route, like what you meant, like if it's Mike Evans, that's the safe route. Yes, I'll take that. And he was making plays last week for Tampa.
Yeah. Won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. And listen, it's funny, like you prepared for like people to scoff at that. Mike Evans is probably going to the Hall of Fame. How do we talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. as somebody that's going to be a Hall of Fame level player? And so it's like, you can't have it both ways, haters. You can't say, well, he's better than Mike Evans, but he's not a Hall. No. If he's Mike Evans or better, he's going to the Hall of Fame. And that's where his pro comps lie in every single piece of resource that I found. Damon Dog, let's throw it up. These are the Marvin Harrison Jr. pro comps from about a handful of publications. Check this out. ESPN, Randy Moss. Sports Illustrated, Randy Moss. NFL.com, former Cardinal and Bengal great AJ Green. How about this from Bleacher Report? A combination. Is this good? AJ Green, Andre Johnson, formerly of the Houston Texans. The Ringer, they're going a little bit recent. How about Jamar Chase? And then the Draft Network, they do a great job. A bigger Devontae Adams, a bigger, more physical Devontae Adams. This all sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, I'll absolutely take any of those, right? I mean, everybody's single one of these guys is we'll see, Jamar Chase is on that trajectory, but either has a bust, is going to have a bust in a gold jacket. The bigger Devontae Adams is pretty funny. It's tough to beat. Like, there's no like Antoine Wesley comp on here. Like these are all guys that are unbelievable and had unbelievable careers in the NFL. And like everything that's being said about Marvin Harrison Jr. and what's coming out of Columbus and what has been said by his former teammates, that he outworks everybody and he separates himself even from guys who are first round picks in their own right, and the Garrett Wilsons and the Chris Olaves. Like that's the type of player that you want to bet on in the draft this high. Like they take all the homework that you have to do out of the equation. Like you see it. He's got the size. It's 6'3", 6'4". He's got the athleticism. He's got the speed. He's got the playmaking ability, and he's done it against high competition, playing for Ohio State, playing against Georgia in the college football playoff, playing through a Big Ten season, and playing against Michigan, the national championship this year, playing without a top-tier quarterback this season after playing with C.J. Stroud, but being able to play with a quarterback the caliber of C.J. Stroud. Like, he's taken a lot of the hard work that you have to put in the studying as a talent evaluator out of the equation. He makes it easy for you. And then you hear things like, man, he's the hardest working guy in the building. He's there when you get there. He's there when you leave. That's the type of guy that you want to take in the draft. And there's no question marks about it. And if he fizzles out, you say, look, it was all there. I don't know what to tell you. It just didn't work out at the next level. And I think that that's the chances of that happening are even rarer than him not, making a bunch of Pro Bowls and being one of the top receivers in the league.
Yeah, it's like you want to minimize risk versus reward for the draft process. Like he's the safest player in the draft. He's also the best player, and he fits a need. Like we go back to this garbage that we hear about. They're going to take a tackle over Marvin Harrison Jr. Come on. No tackle. And I love Joe. And that's not a knock on Joe Alt or Alu Fashanu. Joe Alt and Alu Fashanu probably will never be as good as Penei Sewell. Like you're betting right now, they're never going to be as good as a tackle that was taken a couple years ago. We've got people saying Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best wide receiver prospect of the last 10 years. And he's being compared to, look at those names. All those guys are going to either be in the Hall of Fame or in the category for the Hall of Fame in the discussion. So let's call a spade a spade. I agree with a lot of people saying like AJ Green, but I think he's more physical than AJ Green was. And AJ Green was very slight coming out of Georgia. I don't think there's a perfect comp for him right now. I think I like what Bleacher Report did. I think he's a combination of a couple different guys. When I watch him, I do see a little Larry, but when I watch him, like, I think his vertical separation was like AJ Green. Remember how fast AJ Green was? Even in Arizona, he could separate. And then I like the Andre Johnson physicality piece. Like, I think those two in conjunction, Mike Evans has that. Like, that's the realm we're dealing with. Andre, Mike Evans, AJ Green. You know, you want to Calvin Johnson. We got to see Calvin Johnson at the combine was next level. If Marvin Harrison Jr. runs like a sub 4.4, then we can have that conversation. Randy Moss's speed was next level. Like, I think Marvin is exceptionally fast, but like, I got to see it time to put an official, rating on it.
And even Randy Moss, I mean, when he was coming out, went to a small school in Marshall. Obviously, he had the red flags as far as his character. And he dropped to 20, right? And Denny Green was he's picking Randy Moss before he's picking Larry Fitzgerald. Unbelievable track record of selecting wide receivers, the late great Denny Green. But yeah, I mean, like, Marvin Harrison, like, he's taken, as I said, the hard homework out of it. Like, he's got the pedigree, he's got his dad's a Hall of Famer. His dad, it was undersized in his own right, so he had that work. So he instilled that in his son. It's just unbelievable. Eddie, calm down, dude. Nobody's comping him. Randy Moss, dude, just calm down.
I mean, ESPN and SI said that, they're hearing whispers that he's comped to Randy Moss. He's the best prospect at receiver since Randy Moss. Like, Randy Moss was a freak of nature. I think Marvin's a freak of nature. Somebody asked about Julio Jones. He's bigger than Julio Jones. Julio Jones is about 6'2.5", 6'3". Marvin's 6'4.5". And that's why I think, like, Mike Evans is 6'5". Larry was about 6'3.25". Like, he's in that category. Like, Jamar Chase is only like 6'1". So that's why I don't think that that's fair. Like, Marvin Harrison Jr. is almost 6'5". And then he's got the elite separation and the elite speed. Like, there is nothing he does not possess. Like, you could nitpick Fitz and his 40 time. People did, right?
Yeah.
People nitpick Jamar Chase's size, his height, rather. He plays bigger, just like people nitpick Anquan Bolden's speed. Ran like a 4.7 coming out of Florida State. There's no weaknesses to Marvin Harrison Jr.'s game that we know of yet.
Right. And like the NFL does, it humbles a lot of people.
It
right?
exposes you, for sure.
You will. And that's why, those rookie moments, the welcome to the league moments are very real. And then, like, there's the thing, like, I know people will probably 9 out of 10 people will sign up for Moss, but you also have to keep in mind, like, Marvin Harrison also isn't showing coming out any of the red flags that Moss had, where Moss, every stop of the way of his career ended in divorce. Like, he left Minnesota to go to New England, and then, he had a career resurgence with the Patriots, and then ended up, but that in between there was Oakland in there. He played for the Raiders, quit on the Raiders, and then he goes from New England to Tennessee back to Minnesota at some point. Like, you just hope that, and I know that there's a lot of, at that position and at that skill set, like, it's tough to find guys to match that. And he was competitive, but at the same time, like, from what we're hearing about Marvin Harrison Jr., you're not going to get that type of that ego or anything. Like, he fits what Monti Ossenfort said he wanted from his players, and it's an egoless football player.
The only thing that's going to prevent Marvin Harrison Jr. from being a great player in the NFL is an injury that were to come up. Like, I think he's too driven. He's too physically gifted. His dad has the DNA and instilling that work ethic on him. And then I think back, remember early in the college football season, we all gasped. He went out of the game against Notre Dame. And what happened? Came back in that game. And they won. I think they won that game. And
quarterback play is going to be big.
SOB. Right. Well, and we know who his QB is, though.
Right.
We think.
I'm just saying, like, that was a huge role. Marvin Harrison Sr. I mean, I don't know what his career would look like without Peyton Manning. Like, Peyton Manning revolutionized how the quarterback play, or how the position was played. And I mean, that was huge as far as Marvin Harrison Sr. and his road to Canton. And it matched with what Peyton wanted to do, and how they studied and how they prepared,
no doubt.
And how they cut up, opposing defenses throughout their career together.
I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the type of prospect that when you're gifted that, if you pass on him, then everybody deserves to be chastised for their entire. It's a career defining move, and it's not a career defining move if you pass on Joe Alt or Alu Fashanu, respectfully. Like it's the
I mean,
same conversation.
those guys make you better. They do. Just like
They do.
Marvin Harrison, they make you a better team than you were yesterday.
You had a
And
great point though, that the Ryan Poles couldn't be the GM that passed on Caleb Williams. Ossenfort can't be the GM that passes on Marvin Harrison Jr. Like the only calling card that you're allowed to pass on him for is if you
right.
need a quarterback, and that's the elixir. Will the Cardinals have a quarterback?
Yeah, Ryan Poles is already he's got something that you don't want to be known for on their resume. And Monti Ossenfort doesn't want to be known for a negative in year 2 of a rebuild. Like, I mean, I think he could survive that, but it's going to be a humbling reminder throughout the most likely long and successful career of a Marvin Harrison Jr. But like, if you miss on an alt and he become in, and look, I know people will point to Levi Brown being part of a Super Bowl team, but like, was he a Pro Bowl offensive lineman? No, like Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu need to be a perennial Pro Bowler to match worthy of being selected higher than Marvin Harrison Jr.
I think you drafted a Pro Bowl lineman last year. You built up some credibility. You've shown you can do that. And there's tackles to be had. There's only one MHJ. There's only one PHNX Cardinals podcast, your premier Arizona Cardinal podcast. OGs flavoring Friday. Ryan Carly, $2 super chat. I say Kyler pick our first man. He's got psychic powers. Well, once upon a time, he wanted Tristan Wirfs. He also wanted CeeDee Lamb and Creed Humphreys. And then he also pushed to draft Devin Duvernay, his cousin, who's an all-pro returner for Baltimore. So, yeah, I would say pretty good track record. And he endorsed Paris Johnson Jr. last year. So maybe not making the picks, but like have Kyler in the room. I think that's a good look.
Like just get his just what he thinks, and he doesn't need to be in the war room. Like,
No,
we don't need that.
I'm joking.
Yeah, I know you are, but let's not speak that into existence. I think Kyler would probably, like us, watch the draft from his house or wherever our draft party is.
Yeah, get Kyler at our draft party.
Yeah.
I think Kyler's going to be happy regardless because they're going to draft an offensive
He loves
player.
football. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. Like, he just loves watching football. So he knows when he watches, he knows what a good football player looks like.
Yeah, he's a private person, but he's not made private about. I mean, he's a sports junkie, and and he's a glue guy. And I think, not to get off topic here, I think we're going to see so much pro Kyler stuff this offseason of him working out with his teammates, the aforementioned Trey McBride and Michael Wilson. There's going to be a point either next year or maybe even in 2025 where people sit back and they're like, remember when we just dogged Kyler Murray for no reason for 18 months? And now he's like one of the best players in the NFL again. And he is so polished. And we are too hard, not this podcast, but just in general, on young people to be what we want them to be from the minute that they come out. I mean, the maturation process can be a beautiful thing, and we need to be patient and reward that. Somebody mentions Kirk Cousins in the chat. Like, Kirk Cousins, people thought was a joke. I mean, like, the Vikings don't think he's a joke. The Viking fans don't think that. He's been to the playoffs multiple times. So I think that's the tag that Kyler Murray is going to get. It's like, hey, man, I think we were too harsh to judge this guy too quickly. You and I sat on Radio Row last week, and it was just people were making it out like he was some criminal. It was like, what are we talking about here? This is some guy who had really a detrimental general manager, a coaching staff that didn't do him justice, and he was a little bit, had misconceptions about him. That was it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a year ago today or next week when we're out at the Senior Bowl, and I'm going to catch up with Tony Pauline. He had the report that scouts were saying that Kyler Murray was a deterrent to the Arizona Cardinals coaching job at the time, that remained vacant. And I'd love to get an update from Tony.
One for Tony.
I mean, he's not a Tony Pauline. He heard that from scouts. Scouts were saying that. Now, whether or not it was valid or not from the scouts, like, Kyler's one of those guys that I understand like scouts don't like him because he's such a naturally gifted player. And then what was bandied about him that was wrong, the narrative was wrong, and it was a misconception that he didn't work hard, that he didn't study. They don't like those types of players. And I think that they were probably just kind of speaking out of their ass, and they said it to the wrong guy who has a big audience, and he reported it, and it was false. I mean, it wasn't false what Pauline heard.
No, I know what you mean. But I mean,
Yeah.
is that what scout is saying that to Tony Pauline, that Pauline feels like you could get Joe Blow scout making $30K saying, yeah, I don't really, Kyler Murray, he's a deterrent. Like, come on, if you're going to run with that, but you got people like Michael Lombardi and Mike Florio running that narrative or adjacent narrative. So yeah, it's very, very different times, thankfully, for Cardinal fandom. Drew, $1.99 super chat, Bo. What if Kirk Cousins signs with WS or Washington or New England? Yeah. I think both of those teams are not going to sign Kirk Cousins. We talked about it earlier this week. Kirk Cousins, by reports, he's not going to be healthy and cleared for football activity until October or later. He's on the Kyler Murray timeline. So if you're sitting around and you're a rebuilding team like that, and you're waiting for Kirk Cousins to come into your system raw and brand new, it's not like Kyler Murray in his mid-20s under contract. Zero chance. I'm going to put a 0.0000. They're drafting a quarterback.
Yeah, that'd be tough for Washington to get a new head coach in there. Like, it would be the same, very similar, but as you said, older quarterback that you're waiting on a serious injury with the Achilles, and Ben Johnson or whoever's in DC as the new head coach to have to wait out that and then, steady the ship without a starting caliber quarterback. And I think that's asking a lot. It was a lot to ask of Jonathan Gannon and his offensive staff and Petzing and his quarterback coach Izzy Wolfork. So I think that and would Kirk Cousins welcome going back to DC? I know there's a ownership change, but no, I think he would rather just keep that in his rearview mirror. But New England, it's a solid organization. They've got a long history of a lot of success there, and I know a lot of people have moved on. But like, I think that Gerard Mayo is also going to be like, hey, I need a guy that's ready now. And if those reports are true about Kirk Cousins, and often they are, like Aaron Rodgers is the exception. The Achilles injury is usually a long process and get back.
MP, Bear fan that's quickly becoming a staple in our chat. We appreciate the support. $1.99. Bears will trade up to 3. I think he means for Marvin Harrison Jr. and pick 9. Somebody earlier in the show said that CHGO did a breakdown basically saying that the Bears can trade up from 9 to get MHJ at 3. What you're paying is the QB tax, Chicago, if you do that, because you're not only saying we're coming up for a non-quarterback, you're jeopardizing the Patriots' opportunity to get their quarterback. And if they love Jaden Daniels, what are you giving them to part ways with their franchise quarterback? 3 1s? Are you going to trade 3 1s for Marvin Harrison Jr.? Let's see money where your mouth is. You're going to give up pick 9, a first in 2025 and a first in 2026. I don't think Ryan Poles, year-to-year general manager, has the clout to be able to do that. I don't, because if the Patriots fall in love with Jaden Daniels, that's what you'd have to give them to even consider trading back.
Well, I mean, it happened last year with the Cardinals. I mean,
but the Cardinals had their they didn't need a quarterback at their pick, though.
Right. And the Texans, they were the team that was aggressive enough to do it. And as you mentioned, it was a pick swap in the first round. It was a future first, a future third, and a second round pick. Mm-hmm. And as you said, there's going to be a quarterback taxed here, even though it's not a quarterback that the Bears would be coming up to get. The Bears would have to be, they would have to spend a ton, like, in order to make it worth it for the New England Patriots to slide back to 9.
Poles likes to do moves. Traded for Chase Young or Montez Sweat. That's work. Traded for Chase Claypool, and they have the capital after trading back with Carolina. But I don't know. The more I hear from Chicago, the more it's like we're just hoping that maybe a mini trade up for a Roma Dunzi or Malik Neighbors makes more sense. Like if you're Chicago, there's
Fields
a better
would
chance
probably have to be dealt way before then, I would think.
He's getting traded in March. I think he's getting traded in like 6 weeks. He's going to be gone. Like they have to be able to say and telegraph they're taking Caleb Williams, because there's probably a good chance they need to start negotiating that contract and making Caleb and his family feel good about the situation. You can't drag this out. Like Josh Rosen, the Cardinals dragged that out. Thankfully, Kyler Murray was a good sport about it. And like, Kyler Murray could have easily said, I'm not coming to Arizona if Josh Rosen's there. Like, people dog on Kyler Murray. He handled that pretty well.
Yeah.
The Cardinals took Kyler Murray with Josh Rosen on the roster. But here's how secure Kyler Murray is. Kyler Murray knew that one day in camp, he would undress Josh Rosen from a physical standpoint. And I think Caleb Williams, as a thrower of the football, feels confident. Put him against Justin Fields, he would dice him up. He would look better. He would complete more balls. So I think guys who were confident, like, we don't have to sweat that. But it's in the Bears' best interest. See, Steve Keim started watching Kyler Murray tape for the first time in like mid-March. Remember, he turned on his little TV with his VCR, I'm sure, and started watching Oklahoma highlights. Ryan Poles and the Bears, thankfully, have been scouting Caleb Williams for 6 to 12 months. So I think the Rosen situation, they thankfully got Miami to trade, even though it turned into the Isabella pick. Like, that's the outlier. The Bears are going to get this done here soon. This is going to be a done deal.
Fields torched Arizona, but somehow he's bad. Okay, he didn't torch Arizona. He played poorly. He actually played the Cardinals back into that football game with an egregious pick to Jalen Thompson when they were just running the ball down the Cardinals' throat. And the only way that they got back into that was a bad pick from Justin Fields. He should have had probably 2 more picks than that. But you can go off. That's fine. Like the Bears, if they want, in Monti Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon, he pretty much painted this picture for us. When they were sitting at 3 last year, Monti Ossenfort was going through so many different scenarios on how they were going to approach and pivot at 3 in the draft. They're going to be prepared. If a team does want to get up to 3, and for whatever reason, if they want to pay the price to get up to 3rd overall, they'll be prepared for it, to pivot in any direction. And, it would suck but if somebody wants to pay the price to go up and get Marvin, then I think Monti Ossenfort, like, he'll probably let it happen and have a different direction go with the organization beyond Marvin Harrison Jr.
Hannibal, Arizona, who had the 32nd ranked defense and has a D-line who would start in the XFL. Do you remember that clip that went around? Justin Fields had like 20 seconds in the pocket.
Yeah.
And Justin Fields has been getting sacked at like a consistent rate. Like, that's, people put that on the Bears and they can't protect him. Go back and watch that game if you can stomach it. It's an awful football game. Kyler Murray and the offense hadn't synced yet. They were still trotting out Hollywood Brown. Like, I feel confident. Like, if the Cardinals and the Bears had played again in Week 18, I think Cardinals win that game with the way the Cardinals were playing. I don't know that definitively, but
yeah,
like the Cardinals defense, the Bears could have run for 300 yards that day. Most teams could have. It was not Justin Fields that day. He had a lower quarterback rating than Kyler Murray did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, crazy. They did beat the Eagles were the worst team down the stretch in the NFL. They were. And they had to rally back to beat them, and they did. It was a good win for the organization, but it still didn't like change the fact that the Cardinals lacked talent all over the roster. But
name 4 defensive players for the Cardinals. Like, casual fans can't do that. They probably think Isaiah Simmons is still on this defense and Patrick Peterson. Like, it's the worst front 7 that I've watched them field in my adult life. Now, there have been worse teams and maybe worse overall defenses based on the coaching, but the talent was terrible. But I hope Justin Fields has success, but it's going to be elsewhere. It's not going to be in Chicago. It's over. It's over for him.
Yeah, it's over. I believe this week is over for us. Next week, it's live from the Senior Bowl, Mobile, Alabama. Myself, award-winning producer Damon Dog, will be out there watching the prospects live and in person, getting the interviews with the insiders, the experts, the analysts, and the players themselves, plus a bunch of Arizona Cardinals coaches down there. We're going to get the sights, the sounds for you. Make sure you're subscribed to PHNX Sports here on YouTube. You're following along on Twitter at PHNX_Cardinals and PHNX_Sports, at Johnny Venerable, at Damon Dog, and at Bo Brack. Have a great weekend. Subscribe to this channel. Like this video. We'll talk to you guys on Monday with a brand new PHNX Cardinals.
We all silly like the mayor.